Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the 423 Football Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Bouchard, joined here, as always, by Brett Hamilton.
Hello!
And it's good to be back. We took basically a day hiatus from what we normally do, releasing them on Monday. Obviously, we were gone throughout this entire weekend. Went to Talladega, Alabama, saw some racing, saw some interesting people. Maybe some stories not safe for work, but
there's never a shortage of people at Talladega.
No, you can just people watch for days. That's the best part. That the whole thing, it's just a big old party. It's great, fantastic time.
Yeah.
But we're excited to be back with you guys today, talking 2018 NFL Draft recap. Over the weekend, we had the draft going on. As you guys know, if you follow us on Twitter at the 423 Football. We live tweeted the first round, which was on Thursday, but then on Friday and Saturday, we didn't really have cell service, so it was very, very difficult to keep up. I remember I was going, any time we could slightly get any service and see what pick got selected, we were thrilled. So today we're going to go over what we saw from the draft, give you just a little bit of a recap, between which team had the best draft, who did poorly, who had some good picks, sleeper picks, possible teams that reached up in the draft and picked a little sooner than they should have. So I'm just going to go through, first of all, because I know we both have different things written in our notes, but just a few noteworthy picks to talk about, mainly out of the top 10. These are just out of the top 10. So right off the bat, number one overall, we had Baker Mayfield, taken by the Browns. As of right now, Hugh Jackson says that Tyrod Taylor is the starter. Do you buy into that?
Yeah. I mean, come week one, Tyrod Taylor's going to be the starter. I don't think there's any reason to rush Baker Mayfield in there. I like Tyrod Taylor more than the average, I guess. Yeah. But I think he's going to do fine starting out, and I don't think Baker Mayfield's ready to go in.
Yeah, I think
blazing into game number one.
I mean, regardless of being the number one pick, I think it's smart to put Tyrod there because maybe even if Baker Mayfield's ready to play the game, it's still just the transition from college game to the NFL.
And there's no reason to rush him.
No, there's really not. And even if Baker's best case scenario, if Baker starts the entire season and things are looking well for them, or if Tyrod Taylor starts the entire season and things are looking well for them, we still don't think they're going to win more than 5 games. Maybe there's no need to rush them at this point, especially if you're going to lose that many games, then you're probably going to get a good pick in next year's draft as well to add to this rebuilding situation. You got a lot of young guys. There's no need to rush it. But yeah, we'll talk more about Baker Mayfield here in a little bit. Yep. Number 2, we got Saquon Barkley going number 2 to the Giants. I mean, it's a great fit for him. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a hell of a rookie year and a hell of a career. Now, the main thing people are discussing, should the Giants have taken a quarterback for Eli Manning's probably near retirement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it just solidifies the fact that they're trying to win now with the pieces that they have. Get Eli Manning another Super Bowl ring, and that's the piece to bring in to do it. Yeah, to give yourself the biggest chance of success, they needed a running back that can deliver anything that they ask of him.
Yeah,
and I get so. I'd say probably next year they'll be going after a quarterback.
That's the only problem though with this.
I don't know Saquon other quarterbacks they can get.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley is a super talent, but the amount of quarterbacks and the talent of quarterbacks in this draft is unprecedented. It was they passed on Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, who we think were 2 of the better quarterbacks we've seen in the past 5 years come out of drafts. So. Right. I mean, you got to think that. But if their win now scenario, I guess that's the path they're taking right now. Sam Darnold goes number 3 to the Jets. Love this pick for the Jets. He is going to be their starter most likely day one. McCown might start a few games, but Darnold's going to start at some time this year. He's a very smart quarterback. He needs to maybe protect the ball a little more. Jets definitely need to get a few more pieces around him to help him succeed. But I love that pick for the Jets. Jets got a steal, honestly, especially with two other teams that could have taken Sam Darnold before he fell to them. And then Denzel Ward, number 4 to the Browns. This one shocked me. This is probably one of the biggest shocks in the draft, I believe, just because Bradley Chubb is he's the best defensive player in this draft, and 2, that makes him the safest defensive player in this draft. Denzel Ward is, I like what he can do. I like him as a corner. He was my favorite corner in this draft, but it's a bit risky. He's undersized. He's had injury problems before. Usually teams who are trying to change things around and solidify what they're doing go for pass rushers and quarterbacks. And Browns do one of these things, and again, that was a little bit risky with Mayfield, in my opinion. Yeah. And then you have Denzel Ward, cornerback. It's
very risky, 2 picks.
It's very, very risky. I don't much like it.
There are a lot safer options they could have gone with.
Yeah, and obviously that leads to Bradley Chubb falling to number 5 to the Broncos. They're just because they were basically waiting on trade offers the entire time. They were talking them trading back, and they're just like, oh, Bradley Chubb's here. Thank you very much. We're not going anywhere. Yeah. So Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, and not to mention Shane Ray, will be fresh legs to come in on certain downs, and maybe even on downs when Von Miller and Chubb are out there. But they just got a steal there. That was absolutely fantastic. We're going to be talking about Chubb and Miller as one of the best duo pass rushers in the league, alongside maybe Watt and Clowney. So that's going to be exciting to see. We got the Bills trading up to get Josh Allen at number 7. Again, another quarterback going off the board here. I really don't know how to gauge what the Bills are going to do just yet. McCarron it's kind of a different situation because with the other teams like the Browns, Tyrod Taylor has starting experience, solid starting experience. Jets with Josh McCown, solid starting experience. A.J. McCarron doesn't really have that. He's got experience, but not to the caliber of those guys. So I don't really know if McCarron will get many starts, if any. It just depends on how ready Josh Allen is. And then last but not least, with the top 10 rounding out, Josh Rosen, falls to number 10, where the Cardinals trade up to get him. That was just the bizarro thing of the draft. It didn't really shock me. That was one of my bold predictions. Yeah. Josh Rosen falling out of I think I said top 8, falling out of the top 8. So Josh Rosen at number 10, we had him as our favorite quarterback in this draft, I believe, and falling to number 10 behind 3 other guys is absolutely incredible. The Cardinals are set for a long time, I think, with this pick.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite picks of the draft.
Yeah. All right, you want to lead us into the entire recap?
Yeah, we're going over some shocks, some best drafts, worst drafts, best steals, all kinds of stuff. So we'll just, we'll start off with a quick little biggest shock from the draft. I'll go ahead and start it off. Hopefully we don't have the same one. I doubt it, because there's a lot of shocks.
We could talk.
I'll say I have a couple written down, but I think I'm going to go with the Ravens taking 2 tight ends in the top 3 rounds. They're definitely some of the top tight ends. I don't disagree with the players.
They're not bad players. No,
and I don't disagree that they needed maybe a more solid tight end. But they went out and got Hayden Hurst in the first round and Mark Andrews in the third round. I just don't like it.
I completely agree with that.
I don't think either of those players are worth a first round pick at all.
I don't have a problem with them taking Hayden Hurst in the first. I have a problem with them wasting another pick on a tight end that early because they still have Crockett.
Way too early.
They still have Crockett Gilmore. Yeah. They still have Max Williams. They're not the greatest talents, but we don't really know what drafting 2 rookie tight ends. It's very Ozzie Newsome I mean, props to him doing his last draft as the Ravens GM, but I didn't really like it. Didn't really like the tight ends.
I saw it stat. I can't remember. I should have written it down. But the Ravens have drafted more tight ends in the top 100 of like every single draft since some years ago.
Just go back. I mentioned Crockett Gilmore. I mentioned Max Williams.
I don't know why they do that.
I mean, talking Dennis Pitta. You're talking just on and on and on. Tight ends.
You're not talking about any of those being elite. I mean, the best one out of those is probably Dennis Pitta.
Yeah, and
the most reliable, I guess.
Yeah,
and wow,
he didn't last long.
Exactly. So why? I don't know what it is about taking tight ends, but I don't know why you need 2 of the top 5 tight end prospects in the first 3 rounds.
It's bizarre. I definitely agree with that, Shock. I'm just going to go to the tippy top. Baker Mayfield, that really, really shocked me. We didn't really. Yeah. I mean, there were some whispers that the Browns were thinking of taking him, and apparently, like, obviously Baker Mayfield must have been just like on a whole nother level on the Browns board because they have the number 1 pick. They get anybody. They control basically what happens the rest of this top 10 with the quarterbacks, and they decided to take Baker Mayfield. I think it's a very, very, very big mistake. I mean, it could work out okay. Baker Mayfield, he's going to win more games than obviously they did last year, which was 0. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. But you look at teams and like what the Browns have done in the past couple of years, you're trying to minimize risk as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't do that. Baker Mayfield here and then Denzel Ward even at number 4, you're not minimizing risk. It would have been so much safer to take Sam Darnold and then Bradley Chubb. Basically, or even Saquon Barkley. You could have taken Saquon Barkley and Bradley Chubb. Even if you didn't even want to go the quarterback route, I think that would have been even more ignorant. But at least they basically passed on the top offensive prospect in this draft, and they passed on the top defensive prospect in this draft. It's just more of the Browns doing weird stuff to try to jump back, or they're trying to take like 10 steps at once. Yeah. And it's never worked out for them. Yeah. It really hasn't.
And they definitely need to take 10 steps, and that's the problem.
Yeah, but you gotta slowly get up them stairs. You can't just take that giant leap at once. And I like what they've done in the offseason, adding all these defensive players. The reason the Browns are going to be better this year is because of their defense. It's not because they drafted Baker Mayfield number 1. It's not because they went out and took Denzel Ward at number 4, because honestly, he'll start, but that Denzel Ward at number 4 is not going to be as relevant, I think, as Bradley Chubb would have been. Just getting those pass rushers. And talking about Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb together, that would have been incredible. Incredible to see. Yeah. So it's just very interesting that they went those routes. They were shocking. That's what we're saying here. So, yeah, biggest shock. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield at number 1.
Yeah, definitely shocked me. I was not expecting that at all. So the next one we're going to go over, who do you think had the best draft? Since I started off the first one, I'll go ahead and ask you to start this one off.
All right, well, I have 3 teams written down because I think they're all about on the same tier with how well they did. But I'm going to go with... Well, I'll mention both, unless you mention one on your take. But I'll mention right off the bat, I'm just going to say the Packers. I mean, the Packers take their first-round pick at 14. We're sitting here watching it basically right where we're sitting now. Packers trade back in the first round. They get the Saints first-rounder next year, which
is awesome.
I mean, that's incredible. They're the only team with 2 first-round picks next year.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, so far. And then Jari Alexander still falls to them. They get him. And then in the second round, they go and Josh Jackson falls to them. So they get 2 of, in most people's rankings, 2 of the top 3 cornerbacks in this draft in the first and second round. They go out and get a fast linebacker in the third and Oren Burks. And then you get 3 promising late-round wide receivers that could blow up at any time, honestly, with Aaron Rodgers. One of those guys is going to be relevant because they have a hole in their receiving core. I think Equanimeous St. Brown was just one of the biggest steals of this draft, coming in that late in the 6th round. It kind of went downhill and kind of got a little weird when they took a punter. I never really liked that, just in general. But with all their picks that they had, and then the solidifying of future draft capital, I don't see how the Packers aren't one of the best teams in this draft, or out of this draft.
Yeah. Well, I had two teams written down because I really wanted to say the Packers, because I honestly do think the Packers had the best draft. But I knew that you would also say that. So another team I thought had a really good draft, and there's nothing really flashy about it. It's a lot of defense, but I think that they made some really solid picks, and they got some players that I thought fell a little bit more than I thought would in this draft, and that's Los Angeles Chargers. They got a steal at number 17 with Derwin James. That's
an understatement.
I cannot even fathom how he fell to number 17.
Well, that's what when we were sitting here watching the draft and the Packers were on the clock at 14, before they traded, I was like, yes, this is it, Derwin James right here. And then they traded out, I was like, no! Obviously it worked out, but Derwin James going to 17, that's incredible.
No, that was fantastic. And then the next two picks, they got you're still focusing on the defensive side of the ball. They got a good defensive end, and I forgot how to pronounce his name. Nuosu.
Yeah.
Nuosu, something like that.
It's hard. Yeah, I can't do it.
That one's tough. And then they got a defensive tackle, Justin Jones, and I think both of those players were one of my top defensive prospects for the line. And Nuosu, especially, fantastic edge rusher, and I think that's going to make their defense much more solid. And it's nothing sexy on the offensive side, but they addressed all the positions that they needed, and they made their team better on draft day.
Definitely. Do you think, obviously Jaguars have one of the top secondaries, maybe the best. We got the Rams beefing up their secondary. That one's looking good now. Chargers might be up there. Casey Hayward, Jason Everett, if they can get him healthy, Jaleel Addae, and now Derwin James. That is super, super solid, super young, super talented, fast, smart. All the things that we've seen in Jacksonville in terms of secondary players.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention one more because I think. Actually, I'll mention two real quick. Maybe you had this one written down. Who was the other one you had written down?
Oh, I just had the Chargers and the Packers.
Oh yeah, you said the Packers. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm sticking in the NFC North. The Bears. The Bears. I think everyone's talking about the Browns and their first three picks, and I think the Bears had a better first three picks than the Browns did.
Yeah.
And that's including Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward. So the Bears go out and snag Roquan Smith in the first round.
Great pick.
James Daniels, arguably in some cases the best center in the draft, falls to them in the second round. And then they snag a wide receiver, which they desperately need, in Anthony Miller. And a lot of people are calling him the next Antonio Brown. So...
That's big shoes to
fill. He's been shooting
Talk
up.
about a hype train.
He has definitely gotten the hype train recently. So yeah, I think those are great picks. And then I'm going to mention the Broncos. Broncos snag Bradley Chubb. Obviously, it just fell to them. They get Cortland Sutton, who might be one of the better big receivers in this draft. Royce Freeman, they needed a running back. They go get him. Josie Jewell, a linebacker who I thought was going to go a lot earlier than what he did. And then they get Deshaun Hamilton, another wide receiver who probably should have gone earlier than he did. And then I think one of the better picks in this entire draft was Troy Fumagalli in the fifth round.
Yeah.
They needed a tight end. They don't have Virgil Green anymore. Troy Fumagalli is he's the perfect tight end for them. He can catch over the middle. Case Keenum kind of likes his tight ends, and he can block pretty well as well. So, yeah, I think the Broncos, Bears, Packers, and, as you mentioned, Chargers, great drafts.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, but my vote is still pretty high for the Packers. I think they made some solid picks.
I think they really stood out. And even just you take their picks alone, they're good, and then you add the fact that they added draft capital for 2019. That's fantastic.
So on the other side of the ball, which team do you think had the worst draft?
Ooh, there were a lot of teams that kind of disappointed, honestly, or made shocking things. I already talked about how I think I'm not going to say they had a bad draft because they're really talented players, and I was looking at the Browns, saying I think they had a poor draft of what they could have done, but I'm not going to say it's bad because they still have talented players.
Right.
It can work out fine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the Saints.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, talking about the other side of that Packers trade in the first round, Saints trade up, give a ton up. Obviously, the first rounder next year for Marcus Davenport.
That's way too much for him.
I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be okay. He's a physical freak. But he's coming out of a small school. Those don't always work out, and then you give up all that for him.
Yeah.
And then after that, really not a lot of high-profile guys that the Saints go after.
No.
Now, they had their draft capital this year wasn't that great. They absolutely killed it last year in the draft. And I mean, they're going to be fine, but not really securing much for their future, which is a little bit scary.
No, I definitely agree with that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because they had I think they had a really, really good draft last year, but this year I think they kind of dropped the ball. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. They didn't have a first-round pick, so that's obviously not good. I was expecting them to trade into the first round and get some good pieces. They didn't. And every other pick that I saw felt like a reach to me. Players that I think are a little bit more risky than what I would be willing to pay, especially when you don't have a first round. You're not getting a first-round guy. And then they go and pick up some players that, like Breland Sparks, or Breland Speaks, not Sparks. It's not Jordan Sparks.
That'd be a better name. I'd be more intrigued then.
Yeah, Breland Sparks, is defensive lineman. He wasn't that high on my list for draft prospects on the defensive side. I don't think that he's a round 2 kind of guy. And it's just an odd pick for the Chiefs as for their first pick in the NFL draft to get him. I just didn't like what I saw. And then the rest, going down the line, I just thought that they just made a series of reaches that I don't think is going to really improve their team a whole lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're, again, going back to their draft capital this year, wasn't really the best, so they didn't have a lot to work with. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, again, they didn't really optimize the picks that they did have.
Nope, I would agree. So, going through the best teams, the worst teams. Now, the best steals of the draft. These are the players.
Oh, yeah.
These are the players that we felt like were going to go sooner, but whenever they did fall, they went to a good team, or they just went really late, and we were kind of shocked.
Yeah, definitely.
So, start us off with just one steal.
Well, I'm going to kind of breeze over these few real quick because we've already talked about them. Josh Rosen falling to 10. Absolutely love that. I think that's arguably the best steal in the draft just because it is a quarterback and he is going to be the backbone of that team for a long time. Bradley Chubb falling to number 5, and then Derwin James, we talked about, falling to 17. I'm going to go ahead and say Harold Landry. Harold Landry out of Boston College, linebacker, goes 41 to the Titans. Titans get a great player here. Arguably a guy I thought that could have gotten picked in the top 20. But he fell for whatever reason, and Titans snag him up, and he's going to be a very, very big asset for them. They needed linebackers, and they go out and get Rashaan Evans in the first round, and then Harold Landry just falls in their lap in the second round.
Yeah. That is also who I picked, but I didn't have a...
Yay! We're on the same page today.
We are definitely on the same page. I mean, I echo just everything that you said. Harold Landry, I was shocked that he made it that far into the second round. It just didn't make any sense to me. And that's a piece that the Titans really need to work on. So it was a great fit, a great steal, and I just love everything about what they did there. But I'm going to go with, we've already talked about it a little bit, so I won't spend much time on it. But I'm going to go with Josh Rosen at number 10 for the Cardinals. That is, I couldn't pick another player that I thought would be a better fit for the Cardinals. They've got some depth at the quarterback position. They've got, obviously, Sam Bradford. He's going to be the starter. He's not reliable in terms of injury. His knee is just a big puddle of jelly. It's gonna break down at some point this season. It's unfortunate because I like Sam Bradford and I think he's a solid quarterback. But I think Josh Rosen could, in the event of Sam Bradford getting hurt or just overtaking that job, I think you put him in there with the weapons, with David Johnson, with Larry Fitzgerald, with what was the wide receiver that is drafted first?
Christian Kirk.
With Christian Kirk, I think that the ceilings could be high for him.
He could be on this list as well for a draft steal, honestly.
I know he fell more than I thought was based on the other, and he may show up later on in the script. But I think that Josh Rosen has an excellent opportunity and could end up providing some good fantasy value as well.
Yeah, definitely. And not to mention, or I just want to say, in our mock draft episode, we had Rosen, or the Cardinals trading up to number 6 to get Rosen, but the fact that they can get him at 10, or trade up at 10 and still be able to do that, I mean, that just adds to how big of a steal that really is.
Yeah.
Another steal for me, I'm going to go with Connor Williams, going 50th to the Cowboys. Another guy we thought was going to be in the top 10, or not top 10, first round. Top 10 would be impressive. But, I mean, just think of the offensive tackles that went before him. Isaiah Wynn, we think Connor Williams is better than him. Colton Miller going 15th, we think Connor Williams is better than him. So it's just more Cowboys loving their offensive linemen, and they get a great one in Connor Williams. And then I had written down the two Packer players, Josh Jackson, who obviously fell to number 45, and Equanimeous St. Brown falling to number 207. I'm not going to dabble too much into that. I will talk a little bit about St. Brown, just because one of those wide receivers will be a fantastic weapon and fantasy option with Aaron Rodgers. It's just which one. I don't see why it's not going to be it. I'm going to start calling him ESB. I got to save time somehow. ESB with Aaron Rodgers.
A whole podcast of just pronouncing his name.
Yeah, honestly. If we talked about Equanimeous St. Brown every single time like that, then that'd probably add an extra 5 minutes on the podcast. But ESB with Aaron Rodgers, if he happens to be the number 3 guy, a 6'5" guy running 4.4, that's what Aaron Rodgers has been missing for a while. He's been missing that speed, that explosiveness from a receiver, and this guy's going to provide that. So I love that pick for the Packers. Great steal.
Yep, I like it. So do you have? Was that your last steal?
I'll mention Maurice Hurst. I know we were talking about him probably falling a little bit because of neck injuries and his heart condition. Falls to 140, goes to the Raiders. If everything's fine with him, they get a great player. A guy with the first-round talent, just a few injury concerns that could possibly hamper him. But if all is good, they got a great defensive tackle.
Yep, I like it. So that was the best steals that we had. So let's move on to draft reaches. So kind of the opposite side of steals. These are players that we thought should have gone later based on where we had them ranked. Or they just went to teams that we don't think really needed them, and we don't see it being a really good fit. So I'll. This is I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this because this one's kind of weird. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
I know what it is, isn't it?
Rashad Penny.
Yeah, Rashad Penny. I knew it.
Because I love it. I love it.
Love the situation. Absolutely love it.
So whenever I call it a reach, it sounds negative, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's bizarre because when it happened, I was like, yes, someone thinks the same as we do because we love Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
It might have been a bit of a reach taking him this early in the first round because they probably could have got him later. But reports are being said they look at him as a 3-down back. They've even had reports out there that they received trade offers after they picked him for Rashad Penny. So other teams like him as well. So maybe they made the right decision. But yeah, it seemed a little bit early for that to happen. No, that one I wasn't expecting it.
No.
But man, I really hope he turns out to be what we think he's going to be. Just a 3-down back who can do everything.
Yeah.
He's going to rejuvenate the running game in Seattle.
Yeah, it was particularly shocking. I mean, it was shocking for me for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't think he would go in the first round. I didn't think we'd be talking this positive about a reach player. Yeah, but the other side of the coin is I thought the Seahawks should have done more to address the issues with the offensive line
and secondary.
And that's what a lot of people are saying is like we're on board with Rashad Penny, but there's a lot of problems with that whole team.
That's true.
That maybe should come before a next generation running back.
And even
because
if
you got to have a line to run behind.
Even if he is a super talented running back, if you don't have a line, we've seen it with Todd Gurley. It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Yeah, so it could go either way. I still like the pick, and I think that they got one of the more underrated running backs in this class. But it's a positive reach.
Yeah.
So what's a reach for you?
Well, I mentioned Colton Miller a second ago, offensive tackle from UCLA, going 15 to Oakland. They need offensive linemen, but why? I mean, why that early? Why that player? I think there were better offensive tackles out there. Again, Connor Williams, I think, was better. But I'll stick with running backs, actually.
Ooh.
Sonny Michel. Michel at 31 to the Patriots. I just think there's a lot of question marks on Sonny Michel. There are a lot more running backs I like, too. And
are there more running backs you like on the Patriots?
Well, yeah, honestly,
I think so.
I mean, Rex Burkhead, they're going to use him. They're going to use him a ton. Sonny Michel, he's going to get opportunities, and he might do pretty well as long as he stays healthy. But you've already heard the degenerative knees that have plagued players like Jay Ajayi. There's been worries with him slowing down pretty soon, which is why everyone had Eagles taking running backs, potentially. Yeah. But then Sonny Michel this early, it's the Patriots' style of player. I understand that. Mm-hmm. And again, the Patriots, I feel like, had more holes on defense and offense than than a running back. And especially the way they use running backs. Yeah. And it's just kind of weird seeing the Patriots take a running back that early. It just doesn't happen much.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is, I didn't think he would go in the first round either. So I thought it was a reach on that side of the coin. I thought it was also a reach for the Patriots and the fact that there are a lot of other players that I think they should have drafted over him.
Yeah.
But that's why it's a reach. So that one's a little bit more of a negative reach. Second one, I'll go home team and go Vita Vea. I think that was a reach for the Buccaneers. I think we originally had Vita Vea going to the Seahawks. No, it wasn't Seahawks, no.
I can't remember. I know I did that. I did a second mock draft right before it started. I can't remember where we had Vea going. I think we had him going to, Cowboys. We had him going to Cowboys.
Okay. Which that would have been nice. And I think that was, towards the end of the first round. We still had him in the first round, but based on what the Buccaneers needed, I think they could have spent their draft stock elsewhere. And I love Vita Vea. I think he's going to be really good. But they've already spent this offseason improving their defensive line. They signed Jason Pierre-Paul, or traded for Jason Pierre-Paul. They've got Vinny Curry, Mitch Unrain. I can't remember.
They have a lot of guys that are going to rush the passer, which is it's nice.
Which they need that because they were the worst in the NFL at that last year. And so so that's why I was kind of thinking that they were going to address the defensive line issues in the offseason and then trade or use their draft stock to beef the secondary, which they did later on down in the draft.
Yeah.
But I still think Derwin James would have been a better fit for the Buccaneers.
It would have made a ton of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was a perfect draft pick for them, and he was available, and they just passed on with Vita Vea. And fun fact, Vita Vea's actual name is 7 words long.
Yeah, I couldn't. I'm not even. I thought you were going to try to pronounce it. I was like,
no.
Did you just have that in off the top of your head?
No way. But he has 7 words in his actual name, which is just incredible. But I just feel like that was a little bit of a reach for the Bucs to take him at number 12, I guess, because they traded back. Did you have another reach?
I'll mention Terrell Edmonds, Tremaine Edmonds' brother, going to Pittsburgh in the first round at number 28. Just not a guy that was on many people's radar in the first round or even second round, really. He's talented. He's athletic. I mean, he's got size and everything, but just a little bit of a reach for that early.
Yeah. And the last one I'll throw out is DJ Moore to the Panthers. He was my third-ranked wide receiver. I like Calvin Ridley and Cortland Sutton more. The Panthers definitely needed a wide receiver. I don't see where DJ Moore really fills the need for that team in terms of wide receiver. I think that there's other players that they could have drafted, even in the later rounds, that would have made more sense than DJ Moore. Because I feel like that there's nothing that DJ Moore does particularly better than anything that the other wide receivers could potentially offer that they have there.
Yeah, honestly, I think he's going to be kind of playing on almost a Christian McCaffrey role.
Even weirder.
Like kind of like a scat back, like slot guy, which McCaffrey did a little bit of that. But the thing that bothers me with DJ Moore, I love the talent. I think the fit is okay, but the Panthers, other than Devin Funchess, they don't have a wide receiver over 6 foot.
Yeah,
that's a problem, especially for Cam Newton, because he's been known to be inaccurate at times, throwing bullets that don't need to be thrown. Right. And, DJ Moore, I don't really have that big of a problem with them selecting that right there, because I think DJ Moore is good, and I think he fits a lot better than Calvin Ridley would with the Panthers actually. Yeah. But I would have expected them to wait and take a guy like Sutton later on in the draft.
Yep, that's what I would have expected, but that's why we have it a reach. Next category let's go through is talking about fantasy now. Kind of switch
back to it. We're back to it, baby.
We are back to it. So no more defensive players. Sorry, IDP players. What do you think is give me one of your favorite fantasy landing spots for one of these guys?
Yeah, I think obviously Saquon Barkley going to the Giants is going to be phenomenal. He's probably going to be maybe 5th or 6th in my running back rankings overall, not even rookies, because they are going to use him a ton, and he's going to be
There's
backbone
no one behind him.
No, absolutely not. And then I really, really like Calvin Ridley going to Atlanta. Yeah. Calvin Ridley in Atlanta is probably the best situation he could have ended up in. They don't really have that number 2 guy. Mohamed Sanu's been good, but he's not been that really go-to guy that Matt Ryan goes to constantly. So you got Julio Jones, which I think is going to even elevate Julio's game as well. Mm-hmm. But, 2 super, super talented wide receivers in Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, both from the University of Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, it's wide receiver U. It's just position U, honestly.
Whatever. Anyways, we might edit that part out. So, anyways, welcome back. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is my number 1. They drafted him at number 2 for a reason. They're going to run him into the ground. This isn't a team that wants to throw to Odell Beckham every single play, as successful as that could be. They want to run the ball. They just haven't been able to. And they've got the pieces. As long as everyone stays healthier than last year, they've got the pieces around them to be successful. And I think that was a perfect fit if you're going for the win now mindset. Another one I'll talk about. We already talked about him a little bit. Rashad Penny. I really like that. It's a huge risk based on their offensive line. They did draft some late rounders that could pan out, but if they can kind of mend up their offensive line and give him something to work with, I think that he is super talented. There's a report today they're already saying he's a 3-down back. I already thought that.
That's all in fantasy today. You hear 3-down back. That doesn't happen much anymore.
He just jumped around in fantasy mock drafts.
You say the word 3-down back, and you got everyone's ears perking up.
Yeah. Which I believe it. There's a lot of those reports that you kind of have to take with a grain of salt, but I believe it. They like we said, we think they reached for him, but they did it for a reason, and they believe in him. And they're going to give him the ball and give him a chance. They've given a lot of running backs chances over the years, and there's no reason they won't give him a solid chance at that starter position.
I'm going to say Darius Geis as well, another running back going to Washington. They don't really have a solid role just yet at the running back position. P-Run I like. Rob Kelly, the team and Washington seems to like pretty well, but Geis he's so much more talented than either of these guys. Yeah. Geis he's a hard-nosed runner, which is what the Redskins really need. They have a pretty decent offensive line, honestly, as long as they, again, stay healthy. Redskins were the most injured team last year, so Darius Geis, I think, can be really, really productive in Washington if he gets that starting job.
Yeah, and he fell really late. The only problem I have with Darius Geis is I don't think the Redskins are going to be good.
Well, yeah, you're right there.
And a bad team is only going to have so many opportunities to run
score,
the ball.
and to score touchdowns, which is where the value comes in.
That's my only hesitation.
Yeah,
him.
I guess the guys thing is more possibility of him having the starting role.
Anyway. He has tremendous upside because he and I do like the running backs. I like Rob Kelly a lot. He's explosive. He can get stuff. He can get it done. And I like P. Ryan as well.
And not to mention Chris Thompson if he makes his recovery.
Exactly. So there's a lot of pieces kind of risky, but if he does win out that true number one spot, then I think that he will provide some really good fantasy options. Was that your last favorite?
Yeah. Honestly, there really weren't that many. Other than
fantasy.
Well, in the first round, especially like those premier slots. I mean, you can talk about the quarterbacks again. They're kind of risky here and there.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that here a little bit in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So staying on track with fantasy. What do you think is going to be some good late-round fantasy options? Not your premier players like Saquon Barkley, who's probably going to go in the first round, or the top of the second. So these are guys that will go maybe sixth and on.
Yeah. I'm thinking... Well, obviously, I mentioned the Packers just a minute ago. The Packers, those three wide receivers that got drafted really, really late. Jamon Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and ESB. They really like a lot of guys. The Packers apparently liked wide receivers with long names this year. But all these guys, just look at their tape. It's speed. It is speed. It's strength. It's athleticism. It's something the Packers have really been missing, that Aaron Rodgers has been missing for a little while.
Yeah.
So maybe they get that back. One of these guys is going to be fantasy relevant. I can guarantee you that.
And if I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to go with St. Brown as well. I know we talked about him a little bit.
The only thing
earlier.
Yeah, the only thing, because again, I like St. Brown more than Moore or Scantling, but the fact is the Packers drafted him after both of those guys, and it's what the Packers think. It's not what we think.
Yeah.
I think ESB is very, very talented, and I think he's the best out of these guys, but we'll just have to see what the Packers think come training camp.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm going to go with one of my guys, Christian Kirk, for the Cardinals. He got selected in the second round. I think he fell a lot further than I thought he would. And I think it makes the Cardinals. They've got Sam Bradford, and they've got Mike Glennon, which you don't really have to mention that.
Well, I mean,
But they also have Josh Rosen.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
Even if people were talking about expecting Sam Bradford to get hurt, not play 16 games, whatever, and then throwing in Mike Glennon, and then fantasy relevance for everyone besides Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson, just shot. But you don't have that now. You have Josh Rosen, who I think could step into that role and provide excellent fantasy value to any of those guys. And I think I really like Christian Kirk as a wide receiver, but the Cardinals also got rid of they got rid of both Browns. They don't have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position, so I think he's going to get a real shot to play a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's really good for Rosen. Just the fact that obviously losing the speedsters in both the Browns are not the greatest thing, but you have a veteran wide receiver in Larry Fitzgerald, and then obviously for the Cardinals, I mean you take Josh Rosen again. That was a steal at number 10, and he is arguably the best or most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. Mm-hmm. And then you take Christian Kirk, who fell a little bit as well, and a lot of people think that Christian Kirk is the most pro-ready receiver in this draft. Mm-hmm. So you put those two things together, it should be a decent transition for Christian Kirk into the NFL. I like that pick.
Yep.
I'm going to go really late. Richie James going in the 7th round. I talked about him a little bit in, I think, last week's podcast. But, Richie James goes to San Francisco. I really, really think Richie James is going to be that kind of like Taylor Gabriel type player, a guy that's a little smaller, maybe like a Tyler Lockett type player. We're not going to hear about him for a few weeks. at the start of the season, but I guarantee he comes on in a big way at some point. They might have him returning kicks. I know Marquise Goodwin's their speedster, but now that he's getting a little older, they want to and more solidified in his role as a receiver. They probably don't want to put him back on kickoffs as much anymore. Teams tend to do that. So Richie James, I think he's going to be pretty explosive at some point this next season.
Yep, I like that a lot. My last one that I had was Michael Gallup to the Cowboys. They needed wide receivers after losing Dez. He was selected in the 3rd round, so pretty good draft value. But the bottom line is they need depth at that position. Any of these guys can step up and take over at a good spot. I think he's going to have the opportunity. I like his. We talked about him when we were doing the wide receiver draft preview. I think he's a solid player, and I think he could fit in with the Cowboys really well.
Yeah, I'm going to go again. I'm going deep again. Ryan Izzo going to New England, tight end out of FSU. He's just a big tight end, big red zone threat. I don't really see him being. He's not going to be like the Gronk where he can control the middle of the field as well. But I think he's going to be fantastic. A big tight end in that Patriots offense. We've seen it time and time again. It's explosive and it's nice. And then I'll talk about one guy who I think might be a pretty big sleeper. I don't think a lot of people even have heard this name. But Trenton Cannon, running back out of Virginia State, goes to the Jets. Jets don't really have that solid running back. Isaiah Crowell's there. They don't really like Powell. So Trenton Cannon, I think he could actually come on the scene pretty quickly if New York doesn't really have that solid number one running back. Maybe kind of like a Tariq Cohen burst on the scene like we saw with the Bears last year. So Trenton Cannon, just a name to keep an eye on.
I like it.
Okay, moving on into our first reaction rankings, just out of the group of out of all the QBs, running backs, and wide receivers, we have a little top 5 we can talk about. So, QBs, who are your top 5 QBs for fantasy rookies?
For fantasy rookies, this one was tough.
We had 5 go in the first round, so I assume it's going to be those 5.
It is going to be those 5, so I guess you're asking which order they're going in.
Yeah.
Because it's for fantasy, I'm going to go with it's tough. Sam Darnold, I think number 1. I think that I just like Sam Darnold, definitely more than Baker Mayfield. I believe the Browns are going to let Tyrod Taylor ride that one out. So I don't think that you're going to see a lot of fantasy value from Baker this year at all. So I would go with him, and then Josh Rosen. No, I wouldn't even go with Josh Rosen.
Really?
No. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, is it?
This is just fantasy value. Who you're picking as your rookie quarterback in this year? It's not even dynasty rankings, because obviously dynasty rankings where Darnold would be higher, Jackson would probably be a lot higher.
Oh yeah.
But no, I'm talking this year, 2018. If you were drafting a quarterback, say in a 2-quarterback league, because we had rookie quarterbacks last year. We had Deshaun Watson. We had even Mitch Trubisky, maybe in deeper leagues.
Yeah. Then I would go with Josh Rosen at number 2. I would go with Baker Mayfield at number 3. Probably Josh Allen, and then Lamar.
Lamar, yeah. That was basically the same as mine, except I had Rosen number 1 and Darnold number 2, just because I like the weapons Rosen has as well.
Yeah.
Mayfield and Darnold, that was very, very close to me, because Darnold, I think, is a better quarterback, doesn't have the weapons.
Right.
Mayfield, he definitely has the weapons, so I think that could be good as well.
That's true.
Allen and Jackson, honestly, we don't even know if they're going to be. Well, definitely Jackson, he's not going to be the starter right away. We know that for a fact. And then Josh Allen, we're not really sure if he's going to be the starter right away. Now, running back rankings, obviously Saquon is going to be number 1 for both of us.
I might have a little shocker.
Well, I'll just give you mine real quick. Saquon, number 1. Rashad Penny, I like at number 2. I believe what they're saying. He's going to be the 3-down back in Seattle. Even if the line struggles, just the amount of touches he'll get in Seattle, is going to be pretty good. Darius Geis, I'm going to say at number 3. I think they actually give him the role pretty early in the season. I think Pirine kind of falls off a little bit. I think Kelly falls off a little bit, and I think it's going to be Geis and then Chris Thompson on third down. Royce Freeman, I like at number 4, going to the Broncos. They don't. It's just opportunities basically here. I don't think Royce Freeman is as good as some of these other running backs, but I like the opportunity that he's going to have in the Broncos backfield. And then number 5, I'm going Ronald Jones the third to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, they don't really have a solid running back situation as well. I think he's going to be kind of similar to a Jaquiz Rogers type player, but they drafted him early. I think they're going to use him early, so I really like him there. And then I'll mention Sonny Michel as like a caveat because I think he's going to get playing time. It's just I didn't really like that pick, and I don't see him being that valuable in fantasy next year, especially with all those other running backs in New England.
Yep. Well, number 1, I do have Saquon Barkley. Shocking,
yes.
I know. But number 2, I've got Rashad Penny as well. We've talked about him this whole episode.
He's our guy. He's our guy.
He's definitely our guy. But number 3, I'm going to go Ronald Jones III.
Homer.
No, that is not a Homer pick. Okay, well, I would. You have Geis at what, number 3?
Yeah, number 3.
I like Geis a lot. I just really don't like the Redskins, and I just don't think that he's going to provide a lot of fantasy value. But with Ronald Jones, you've got a track record of the Buccaneers needing to run the ball. They have to run the ball, and they have to do it consistently. And that's what they're building their team to be able to do. And I think the fit's a little bit weird, but I feel like they can make it work, and they're going to let someone run. They don't do the whole running back committee unless they're completely changing their paradigm that they're going to be running. So I think that he's going to have all the opportunity in the world. But then I would go with Royce Freeman and then Darius Geis.
All right. Okay, wide receivers really quick. Top 5 wide receivers. Who you got?
I like Calvin Ridley. I think that he is, Falcons. He's going to be fantastic alongside Julio Jones. Cortland Sutton and DJ Moore are really close for me. Cortland Sutton, he's got some wide receiver. He's got a lot of wide receivers around him.
Yes,
and that's my biggest problem with him. But I really like him. I like him more than DJ Moore. So I've settled on DJ Moore at number 2, and then Cortland Sutton, and then no, I'm not going to do it. I just wanted to put ESB in there just because why not?
Honestly, I'm not. I didn't have any of those Packer receivers in this top 5, but I would have. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them was a top 5 rookie receiver next year.
No, I definitely agree with that. But now I'm going to go with Christian Kirk, and then I'll just throw it. I couldn't decide on number 5, so I'm just going to go with Equanimity St. Brown. I'll take a shot.
Fair enough. Might as well. These are just first reaction rankings. This is right after the draft. I'm gonna Ridley number 1. No doubt in my mind, he's going to have a very, very good fantasy season with Matt Ryan throwing him the ball. DJ Moore, I still like at number 2. I think they're going to use him quite a bit. Christian Kirk, that's a great situation. We talked about him with Josh Rosen. Number 4, I'm actually saying Anthony Miller. Going to the Bears. I think Mitch Trubisky is going to hone in on him and Allen Robinson just primarily. And if Anthony Miller really turns out to be what he's hyped up to be, then I think that's fantastic for next year. And then I'll pick Cortland Sutton. I think it's going to be hard for him to work in just production with those other guys, but I think it can be okay. And then I do want to mention James Washington going to the Steelers. Martavis Bryant is not on that team anymore. Antonio Brown is obviously there. Juju's already obviously there. But James Washington, I think he's going to kind of fill the role that Martavis did somewhat. He's really not as athletic as Martavis, but he can get the job done. And we saw what Juju did as a rookie last year, so why not James Washington?
Yep, I like that a lot.
All right, any other takeaways or draft selections you want to discuss?
Oh, no. The Dolphins got Minkah Fitzpatrick. I was a little salty about that one.
Roll Tide, baby. Speaking of, Bama with the most draft selections, I think, ever in a draft with 11.
There was quite a few.
Or no, with 12, I believe. I think it was because it was.
I didn't look at the count.
It was either 11 or 12 because I know it was at least half of a starting roster for a football team. So that's crazy. And not to mention a few guys.
Surprising,
and a few guys went undrafted, which was very surprising. But I do want to mention a few quarterbacks real quick. Obviously, we mentioned the big name quarterbacks, but teams that took quarterbacks that are teams that might not have their guy in the next couple years. So obviously, Lamar Jackson, Joe Flacco, we don't really know what they're thinking there. Giants do get a quarterback, and a quarterback I thought the Patriots were going to go after. Kyle Lalita, love that for the Giants.
Yeah.
Since they decided to pass on a quarterback at number 2, I think Kyle Lalita is a pretty decent pick when they were finding a quarterback to possibly replace Eli Manning. Steelers get Mason Rudolph. Love that pick as well. Sorry, Josh Dobbs, you're not going to be the guy. And then Patriots taking Danny Etling. They do take one quarterback. I really, really don't like Danny Etling as a quarterback. He is not pro ready. He's not.
No, he's just not very impressive at all.
No, not at all. It's just. I mean, they had to take a quarterback. I get it. They needed a backup, but Etling, I don't see him being the guy. So they're probably going to wait till next year to find their future quarterback. Yep. Okay, before we close it out, if you've all been listening the past couple weeks, if you've been following us on Twitter, Facebook, all over the place, you know we have been counting down to our giveaway. Today's the day. We're announcing it right now on the podcast. I haven't even told Brett the name of the guy yet.
Because it's me.
Sorry, it was... Or of the person, because it's you, of the person yet. I took everyone's name. I think we had like 155 people that entered the giveaway that followed us and retweeted that tweet, our giveaway tweet, for our Le'Veon Bell signed jersey. So I put all those names in a random name selector or whatever, which was annoying as hell, by the way. We got to find a better way to do that, especially if we get more, if we do more giveaways. Yeah. But anyway, so the winner of the Le'Veon Bell signed jersey, name is Diane Price. You can find her or him or her, Diane. I don't know. I think the picture was a guy. So anyway, but I believe from Florida at PGHPeanut1_. That's their Twitter tag. So yeah, congratulations to
Diane.
Yes, and we'll be sending. We'll DM you or you'll hear from us, and we'll sort everything out there. And then next week, we're actually going to start another giveaway. So definitely listen in next week. We're going to have we might try to do one like once a month, roughly. I know that was about the time frame for this Le'Veon Bell jersey giveaway. So keep following us. Keep retweeting us. Get everyone you know listening to our podcast so we can do more giveaways, benefit more listeners in the future. So next week, we're going to have that, and we're still trying to decide what we're going to do the rest of the summer when it comes to just this podcast in general. So next week, I think we're going to talk a little more draft and a little more like what some of these drafted players, what it means for them and what it means for players already on those teams. So just seeing how things play out even more in depth. So, yeah, that's our show for today. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at the423football. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Give us a like. Leave your comments and reviews. Thanks for listening. We are the 423 Football Podcast. Peace.